Hey, this is Professor Homa. Welcome to EX8 table using a form, and we're actually going to use the same form that we did last time. So you're not going to have to rewrite the HTML. You will have to modify it, but this is the finished version of the form, and it looks like the one that you worked with last time, except instead of laying it out with CSS using floats, what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a table. And I'm sure you're familiar with tables if you've ever used Microsoft Word. It's basically composed of columns and rows, and it's fairly easy to lay things out that are next to each other, which may make this a little bit easier. Plus, also using tables is something that's still used for layout for email marketing. They still do their HTML in tables when they send things through email. So being familiar with tables is still something that it's not used as much, but it's still a skill that you should be familiar with. And I'm going to go over tables by using this same form. And this is the original form. And basically what a table is going to do, it's going to break it down into really 2 columns and I think 8 rows. So there's going to be 8 rows and 2 columns. Here's what it's going to look like. Here's the 8 rows. The rows are the ones that go down, and they actually go across. The columns stand up like columns, so you can see there's 2 columns here. So that's what the table is going to look like. 2 columns, 8 rows, which is basically going to create 16 cells. And it's important that we indicate cells because we are going to have to identify cells when we create our HTML for the tables. Okay, the first thing we'll do is we'll make a table tag that initiates the table, and then we'll put in all the tags that are inside of there when we continue to work on our table. So that's how the table starts. There's opening and closing table tags. Obviously we'll be doing this in our code. The table will still be composed of rows, except I'll use TR tags. I have this shown with opening and closing TR tags just to demonstrate how they work, but there would be an opening TR and then a closing TR, and all the information inside there, including the label and the input text field, would be inside there. So rows are defined by TRs, elements, and the cells, the individual cells that are in there, there'd be 16 of them, are identified by TD elements. That stands for tabular data. So each cell would actually have an open and closing TD tag. So each label, first name, last name, street, would have an open and closing TD tag, and each input text field would have an open and closing TD tag. So that's a lot of extra HTML elements that'll be in our code, but it may be easier to lay out and easier to visualize a little bit than if you weren't familiar with how floats. As far as formatting, then what we're going to do so that it looks nice is we're going to apply CSS to different parts of the table. For example, the TR tag will have a padding bottom 1em, or there could be pixels, but just for the sake of this we're going to use 1em, and that creates the space below it. So we're going to use padding bottom for the TR tag, so the whole row will have padding bottom. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a class for the labels. You'd think you would be able to identify just the labels, but we're going to identify just these TD tags, not these over here. So just these are going to have a class of label. That way we'll be able to identify just this part of it and have it be aligned right and have some padding to the right. Here's the padding to the right, and you can see they're aligned right. So we're going to apply them to a TD class of label, and it's identified by TD.label. We use the # for IDs, we use the dot for classes. So that's pretty much how it's going to be set up. So finished product will still look like this, except the underpinnings of it will basically be a table. So we'll do that, and also we'll be able to actually make this form work. So I'm going to supply you with a PHP file so that the form actually works. You could fill it out and it'll actually send it back to an email of your choice. So that's just the basics of working with a table.